Travis Campbell, guess where I am?
You drag anybody into this show. You'll just bring anybody.
Guess where I am?
Who's crashing our show?
Yeah.
Somebody's crashing our show.
Isn't it wonderful? We get Dr. Hugh Ross. This is so fantastic. I can't believe it. And I get to see you. You're in Georgia? We are in Central Texas, Travis. I wish you were here. If you were here, it would be a perfect time.
It would be a party. Some people bring a party. I am the party.
That's right.
You guys are missing out.
Welcome, everybody. This is Travis and Ross, and this is Notes On, and we try to do Christ on purpose. And we have such an amazing special guest. Dr. Hugh Ross has agreed to join us. Dr. Hugh Ross, founder and ex-president of Reasons to Believe, PhD astrophysicist, ordained minister. What more can I say? Why, Hugh? Why are eclipses such an amazing thing? We're here in Central Texas because tomorrow is the eclipse, and the weather report said it was going to be cloudy and maybe rainy, and we're looking outside right now, and the sky is clear.
And this, those who are watching this, that's yesterday. So we're filming this on Sunday. You guys are watching the eclipse tomorrow, and this is airing on Tuesday. So this is all in retrospect. But Hugh, thank you so much for coming on our show. And we've been talking about having you on for like a year and a half now. So
you're missing out on a great party, Travis. There's about 350 people here, and they've been partying for days. And tomorrow we're going to have this amazing eclipse that we get to see. And
is this a nerd party where y'all just sit around and talk about equations all day? I see that you have an equation on your shirt.
Well, there are a few of us here that really love these kinds of equations. I wear this shirt because these are the equations that were developed by James Clerk Maxwell, who in my opinion is the greatest physicist who ever lived.
Wow. And
also a very devout Christian. He led many scientists to faith in Jesus Christ. So yeah, he's one of my heroes. So I wear his shirt.
Nice.
Yes.
So God said, and he spoke equations into existence.
Well, these are the four equations, the only four you need to describe all the characteristics of light. So when God created light, these are the equations that actually describe the light that God created.
Pretty amazing.
It is said that you can put most of the equations that describe the universe on a single piece of paper. Am I correct about that?
Well, if it's a large enough piece of paper, yeah, that'll work.
But that would speak to the simplicity, in a way, of our Creator.
Yes.
A very simple mind, and yet so powerful at the same time.
Well, it explains why so many mathematicians are followers of Jesus Christ. I mean, the equations are incredibly elegant and beautiful, so symmetrical. I was taught that there's nothing more beautiful in all the universe than equations of physics. So, and having studied them, I have to agree.
Well, there you go.
Hey, about the eclipse.
Yes, please.
When I was a teenager, I was the director of observations for Vancouver's Royal Astronomical Society. And I remember we chased 3 different total eclipses. Every single time it got rained out. So the first eclipse I ever actually got to see as total was in 2017. And Ross, you were with us.
I was there. Me too. That was amazing. I'm 1 for 1, Hugh.
Yeah. Well, this will be my second attempt to see one for real. And what's special about this one, it's 4.5 minutes. The one that we saw in the desert of Oregon was just a little more than 2 minutes. And what's really amazing is this is not just a solar eclipse. It's a perfect solar eclipse, because astronomers, we see lots of bodies eclipsing their fellow bodies. But what's really rare is a perfect solar eclipse. And a perfect solar eclipse is where the eclipsing body has the same diameter in the sky as the body being eclipsed. So for example, the moon shows up about a ½ degree in angular size in the sky. So does the sun. And the sun is 400 times bigger, but it's 400 times farther away. So, and the advantage of a perfect solar eclipse is that you'll get eclipses that range from, say, 0 minutes all the way up to about 7.5 minutes. And when it's closer to zero, you get to see the corona. And, Ross, I mean, I got to see the corona 10 moon diameters across at the 2017 eclipse.
Yes.
And that only happens when you got a really short eclipse. So you need a really close to perfect eclipse to see the corona out to that extent. And it's our ability to see the corona during a solar eclipse that revealed to us astronomers the physics of the atmosphere of the sun and its corona, and we were able to apply that to other stars. If it wasn't for perfect solar eclipses, we wouldn't have that kind of insight into the physics of stellar atmospheres and the stellar corona. Now, the advantage of a longer eclipse, one that's close to 7 minutes, it gets dark enough that you can see faint stars right next to the sun's limb.
Wow.
And that allows you to test the theory of general relativity. And so Einstein came up with his theory of general relativity in 1916. And in 1919, there's an eclipse in Brazil that lasted 7.5 minutes. And they were able to see faint stars because Einstein's theory says that a massive body like the sun will actually bend the path of light. And so they were able to measure the bending, and it affirmed exactly what general relativity predicted. And so it took that long eclipse to be able to pull that off. Now, there's only one time. See, the moon is moving away from the Earth. Mm-hmm. It's been moving away from the Earth ever since it formed. And so in the future, we're not going to have eclipses at all because the moon will be so far away that the sun's diameter will be bigger than the moon's. Even now, a third of the solar eclipses are annular, which means the moon's image is not big enough to cover the image of the sun. And so we call it an annular eclipse, where you see a ring of fire around the moon. Right. But a total eclipse is where you completely block out the image of the sun. And we're living at the one time in the history of the solar system where we're seeing perfect solar eclipses that range from 0 to 7.5 minutes. So a few thousand years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. A few thousand years in the future, that won't be the case.
Really, it's that small a number, huh?
Well, that's if you want to have that range.
Yeah.
And you need that range to get all the physics information we get, where you can both test general relativity and other theories of gravity, at the same time get insights on the physics of the atmosphere of the sun and other stars and physics of the corona of that body. And that actually gives you insight as to the interior physics of the star. So we get all that insight about the nature of stars, thanks to the fact that we happen to be living at the one time in the history of the Earth where we get to see perfect solar eclipses that range from 0 minutes to 7.5 minutes. And it also happens to be the same time window when the sun has maximum luminosity stability.
Wow.
And so, to have those two things perfectly line up, where we got perfect solar eclipses at the same time that the sun is maximally stable in its luminosity and has a minimum flaring activity. Now, we could live here without the sun being quite as stable as it is, but we wouldn't be able to have global civilization. If you want global civilization, the sun has to have very minimal flaring activity and extreme luminosity stability. And the window of time when it's stable enough for advanced civilization, it's about 100,000 years wide. And we're in the middle of that window right now. And what I have in my book, Designed to the Core, I show you the luminosity stability of the sun compared to the luminosity of the star that I found that places second to the sun. We've looked at tens of millions of stars. The one that comes the closest to matching the sun is 5 times more unstable than the sun. A star like that, we could exist in a Stone Age culture with a small population, but we couldn't have billions of people inhabiting the planet with a sufficiently advanced civilization that we could take the good news of salvation to all the people groups of the world. So I don't think it's a coincidence.
This is obviously fascinating. Some people might, I have kind of two questions that go hand in hand. some skeptics listening to this kind of, oh, it's coincidence. You can see eclipses anywhere. You can go to anywhere on the solar system and see them. We're nothing special. I mean, you guys are wasting your time going to Texas. Just walk out your door tomorrow and you'll see the eclipse. Speak to that. Why is location not only on our planet when an eclipse happens, but in our solar system itself? Why is location so important?
Well, they're all over the United States. You'll be able to see a partial eclipse, but only in a total eclipse does it get dark enough that you can see stars in the night sky. Does it get dark enough that you can see the corona? Even if you have just 1% of the sun's light being revealed, in other words, 99% blocked out, that's still not enough. It has to be 100% blocked out. So unless you're in that narrow path where you get a total eclipse, and the wonderful thing of where we are, Ross, we're almost dead center on that narrow band where you get a total solar eclipse.
That's fantastic.
So that means we're getting the longest possible exposure to the eclipse.
So in 2017, the place to be was Oregon. So
yes.
Whenever an eclipse happens, the only way to witness the total eclipse of the sun is to be along the path where you would actually see the sun totally blocked out by the moon.
Right. And that path is anywhere from, say, 30 miles wide to about 80 miles wide. So you have to be in that zone. And you really want to be in the center of that path to get the maximum longevity. And so, we picked this location 3.5 years ago because we know that if you wait too long, people charge way too much money for you to come here. So...
we all know that if you went to Mars, you wouldn't live long enough to be able to see an eclipse, or Jupiter, or any other planet. But assuming that you could live long enough, could you see a total eclipse of the sun, say on the surface of Mars?
Has big eclipses, but they last for hours because their moons are close enough that you get this big shadow. In fact, when you get an eclipse on Jupiter, the shadow is about the size of the Earth. So it's a really big spot, and it literally takes hours to go across. But when an eclipse like that, you're not going to see the corona. You will see stars, but you're not going to see the corona. So you only get the partial revelation of the physics with an eclipse that's that extensive. That's the point about perfect solar eclipses. A perfect solar eclipse is where you get the maximum insight into the physics of stars and the physics of the universe. And
where can I go in the solar system other than Earth to witness such an eclipse?
This is the only place where you get to see a perfect solar eclipse. Jupiter, no. There are eclipses elsewhere in the solar system, but this is the only place where you can actually see a perfect solar eclipse.
Hugh, explain. I've heard you say that perfect solar eclipses, where the sun and the moon appear almost identical in size, are a God thing. That God designed the system for perfect eclipses. Why is that? Why do you see that? Why is that so important?
Well, it tells us in the Bible that God reveals himself through two books, the book of nature and the book of scripture. And just like with the book of scripture, he gave us 66 books. He wants us to read it all. Likewise, he designed the universe in such a way that we can read the entire history book of the book of nature. I mean, something else that people have claimed is just a sheer coincidence. We're living at the only time in the history of the universe when life and the cosmic creation event can actually reach our telescopes. If we were here earlier, we'd only be seeing, say, part of the past history of the universe. And if we were here later, we'd only be seeing part. And when people say, well, that's just a sheer coincidence, well, guess what? We're also living in the only location where life is possible and where we can actually see all the way back to the cosmic creation event. And the fact that we can directly observe the cosmic creation event is where we get some of the most compelling and rigorous proofs that the God of the Bible created the universe from beyond space and time. And that's unique to the Bible. The other holy books talk about God creating within space and time. The Bible says he did it independent of space and time. So yeah, it is a big deal.
So you're suggesting that there's a kind of confluence between the parameters that are absolutely necessary for life to exist, as well as those very parameters that are necessary for scientific observation of our universe.
Yeah, God designed it so we can observe it and see everything that his supernatural hand has done on our behalf.
Wow.
Anywhere else?
I find that just absolutely fascinating, that not only are the very conditions for life obtaining in our universe and on our planet, but the very preconditions for knowing about our universe are obtaining on our planet. And those are the same conditions. That would seem that not only is life in general purposeful, there's a purpose behind life in general, but there's also the very purpose for us discovering things about our universe, that it has a purpose behind it.
And that God wants us to be in awe and appreciate the beauty, that those are important things. I'm with Travis. It's really there's no words for that.
Well, it's not just one coincidence. We're talking dozens of coincidences that all occur at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
So clearly this is no cosmic accident.
Hugh, is this your favorite argument for God's existence? I know that a lot of Christian apologists, they can say, I have a favorite argument. Would this be yours? You've written a lot on this, the creator on the cosmos,
Well,
design
example,
of the core, and so on.
As I read church history, the go-to scientific argument for the God of the Bible has been the design argument. You can go all the way back to the early church fathers. That was the argument they were promoting. And to this day, I think it's the best scientific argument for the existence of the God of the Bible. I mean, I've written 7 full-length books on the fine-tuned designs of the universe and all of its subcomponents that make possible the existence of humans. And what I especially note is the Bible tells us that God began his works of redemption before he created anything at all, which implies that everything that God creates is for the purpose of redemption. So what I've been doing in my latest books is making the point that it's not just designed for life. It's not just designed so that we humans can exist here. The universe has been designed to make possible the redemption of billions of human beings from their sin and evil. And I've been challenging my secular peers, where I say, look, I know you're not yet a Christian, but if you will do your scientific research from a biblical redemptive perspective, it will make you a better scientist. And of course, my goal is that when they experience that success, they'll realize I need to seriously consider what the Bible has to say about my life.
Hugh, can you explain, you're taking the argument even further than a lot of people do. You're saying that not only do we have evidence that God exists from the natural world, but you're saying we have evidence that it's the biblical God, and you're saying that the design features in the universe talk about his redemption. Can you explain that how you're taking that extra step?
Well, what I've done, and especially in the book Design of the Core, is say, look, we can develop a fine-tuned argument for God, basically saying, hey, these are the fine-tuning that you need, the degree of fine-tuning you need to get microbes. And if you want microbes to exist for 3 billion years so that they can chemically transform a planet so the plants and animals exist, the level of fine-tuned design required goes up exponentially. But it goes up even more if you want human beings. But you get the greatest expression of fine-tuning when you put it in the context of what's needed for billions of humans to live on one planet where they can develop the technology, where they can discover that there must be a redeemer that created everything and designed everything so they can be permanently delivered from their sin and evil. And what you see in the Bible is the moment that evil is eradicated, the universe will have fulfilled its purpose. God replaces it and gives us the new creation. And I've written a book, Why the Universe is the Way It Is, making the point Even the laws of physics have been designed with the eradication of evil in mind. The thermodynamics, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, gravity, all play a role in the hands of God to enable a rapid, efficient eradication of evil once and for all. And yes, Jesus said, in this world, you'll have tribulation. If you got gravity, electromagnetism, and thermodynamics, there will be tribulation. Things will decay. So you're going to have tribulation in this life. But he says, take heart, I've overcome the world. This world is not our final home. It's a passageway to a new realm, but we don't go to that realm until evil is first eradicated. And so everything that God designed in the universe, the galaxies, the laws of physics, the quantum mechanical phenomena that are going on, the planets, the gas clouds, asteroids, comets, all of that is fine-tuned to make it possible for billions of humans to be redeemed from their sin and evil. I mean, for example, we need technology to take the good news of salvation to all the people groups of the world. God designed our solar system and our galaxy cluster so we can achieve that kind of technology.
Wow.
I have two questions.
Okay.
And we have 10 minutes, but I think you can answer these. And I know I will just back up a little bit and say I have an entire shelf dedicated to reasons to believe material. So from start to finish, it's almost all RTB material. And I arranged them. I'm a nerd. I arranged them in kind of the logical order in which your books are laid out. And what I've said at conferences is that Reasons to Believe is an organization that tells the entire story of our universe from creation to the flood. And basically, you guys have focused on answering biblical difficulties, Bible difficulties surrounding the first 11 chapters of Genesis. And so if you get RTB's material, you actually get that entire story, which is fantastic. But a lot of people will listen to you and they'll say, God has designed the universe to eradicate evil. Why would he make a universe in which there is evil in the first place? And second of all, why is it taking so long? I mean, billions and billions of years, it seems like an all-powerful being could do this in just a couple of seconds. Do you have anything to say to that?
Yes, I do. Basically making the point that God's not only wanting to eradicate evil, he's wanting to enhance the free will capability of people who choose a relationship with him to receive love and to express love. And God could have easily created us with a weak free will, in which case we wouldn't have such a problem of evil today. But if you got weak free will, you got weak love relationships. God wanted strong love. Strong love meant he had to create us with strong free will. And with strong free will, you will have individuals who say, I want nothing to do with a relationship with God. I want to go my own way. But God also realized there would be some who would use their strong free will to say, I want a relationship with the one who created me. So we all have that choice of whether we want that relationship or do not want that relationship. And that required God taking the risk that we would use our strong free will to rebel against him and introduce evil. But God had a plan in advance of creating the universe. He designed the universe and created beings in such a way that he could use that evil for a greater good. I think evidence for that is what you see in the Garden of Eden. There's Adam and Eve. They're in the garden. They have this great relationship with their creator. And what does God do? He allows the most powerful being that he created, the one who is the first to rebel against his authority, to come into the garden. God could have easily kept him out for all of eternity, but he knew that by exposing humanity to the most powerful and most intelligent being he ever created means that we get purposely exposed to the greatest possible challenge in the context of evil. If we can pass that greatest possible challenge, we come into an eternally secure relationship with our Creator. You know, an analogy I use is that I have a PhD in astrophysics, and It guarantees that never again do I have to be tested for my competency in astrophysics. Based on the idea I've already been subjected to the most challenging tests, therefore it's pointless to test me again. Likewise, God is challenging us to the most difficult tests in the context of evil. But what's better than what I experienced in getting my PhD? The Creator says, there's no way you can take on this being in your own strength, but I'm here to help you. If you come to me for help, I guarantee you'll pass that test. My professors didn't give me any kind of guarantee. God is giving us a guarantee. Come to me for what you can't do for yourself. I'll guarantee you'll pass that most difficult test. And he set up the laws of physics in such a way that it motivates us to avoid evil and pursue virtue, and discover in the process we need God's help to do what the laws of physics are motivating us to do. I mean, look at Genesis 3. What does it say? The moment that Adam and Eve sinned, you're going to have more work, you're going to have more pain, and Ecclesiastes adds, you're going to waste more time. And none of us likes extra pain, extra work, or wasted time. And so what I told my sons when they're growing up, the reason why I discipline you, if I don't, the laws of physics will. And so, and the laws of physics
Right.
are going to be harsher. So
I'm compressing 40 years of suffering into just a few minutes, right? Sometimes a few days, right? Well,
So, Hugh,
Nietzsche, the great famous philosopher, said that, you know, as an atheist, he recognized that it's very difficult, almost impossible to go through suffering and pain unless you know why.
yes.
If you know why you're going through it, then that will do wonders. And Christ not only explains to us why, but also gives us the strength to endure it. He goes above and beyond what Nietzsche himself recognized was a necessary condition for enduring suffering. And when you encounter people that have committed suicide, they've run out of reasons to live. They've run out of whys. You run into people that have gone into total despair. They've run out of whys. All of us endure terrible, tremendous suffering, financial, physical. We in the apologetics arena are experiencing intellectual struggles. But when we realize this, there's a why as to why we're going through this, it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, Travis, you've been both a teacher and a professor. I have too. And our role is to make our students suffer. But they relish the suffering because they recognize the benefits of the suffering. They know why it's going to benefit them.
It's so funny you say that. It's so funny you say that because I've had school years where I went really light on my students and they didn't appreciate me that much as a teacher.
Right.
I've had other school years where I was really hard, and in their senior year, they'll come to me and they'll brag about the hell that I put them through. Or like you can talk to soldiers who talk about their basic training and they kind of brag about it because they hated it while they went through it, but having gone through it, they can look back on it as a kind of badge of honor.
Yeah, and they see the benefit of it. So I like what you said. The key is understanding the benefits of the suffering and trials and tribulation that God puts us through.
Yes. We've only got a couple of minutes left, Dr. Ross, in this episode, but in my Bible reading right now, I'm in Proverbs. And in Proverbs, it talks about how if we adopt a life with wisdom and knowledge and humility, we are blessed by the world around us, by life. If we reject humility, if we reject God, we are heaping coals on our own head. Like these, God doesn't have to go out of our way to bless us or curse us based on how we act. That's in itself is a remarkable thing. The universe didn't have to be built that way. That seems to me to be another piece of evidence for design.
Well, for example, if you got gravity, electromagnetism, thermodynamics, you're going to have hurricanes, you're going to have earthquakes, you're going to have wildfires. But the way God designed our planet and our universe, notice all those entities are optimized to minimize our suffering. So we'd have more suffering if we had fewer earthquakes. we have more suffering, we had more earthquakes. They're at the optimal level. And we see that with hurricanes, we see that with wildfires. I mean, if you don't have enough wildfires, there's not enough charcoal being put into the soil in order to allow the plants and trees to grow the optimal way. But if you have too many wildfires, guess what? You don't have the plants and trees that you really need. It's optimized. So everything we call a natural disaster or an act of God is actually optimized to make our lives as pleasant as possible and to minimize the tribulation we go through without removing the benefits of that tribulation.
That's wonderful news. Well, this has been an incredible 30 minutes, and we have Hugh for another show next week. So come back next week as we explore why Hugh actually thinks that the God of the Bible not only exists, but actually inspired the Bible. And we'll see you guys next week.